AIA 32M, cannot deal with her. 33 past relation. We have been together for the past 6 years and have a 2 daughter. We have bought a house together and moved on together about 2 ago. We have never had a normal relationship in terms of traveling, hotels, weekends, and so on because overall money. I had been unemployed for a while, then she was unemployed for a while. I went to get a level 5 course for a year with the lowest payment, mostly meal pay. COVID lockdown came. We started saving money to get our home and respective furniture. She got pregnant and stayed with the baby after she was born. Then she left her job, as stress plus payment was not good. My salary was good enough to support the bills so she could invest in her time as a real estate agent. This took 1 year and 3 months. Now her ex-BF, let's call him Dan, they were together as a couple for 7 years, lived together for 1.5 What I know is, she did not like him at first. He used to get flirty and physical with other women, cheated multiple times. Hit her. Used psychotropics, she got him into it. Partied a lot at their place while she was resting post-working night shifts 2 days in a row. Never cleaned the house and left everything to her. He also had good qualities, such as he was proactive scheduling hotels, going on trips and so on. When house issues came up, their house or family members, he would show up and fix them. Apparently he could make her open up. Issues in our relationship. She does not identify herself with my family, to the point of telling me she won't say no to meetings because it is my family, otherwise she would say it. I can't get to her as she says I won't understand or will eventually use it against her. I never support her in anything, ignoring the fact that I completely supported her in this transition to real estate, where I kept on removing money from my savings to keep the house running while she saved $15K last year. Her father was the real reason she transitioned jobs. I never prepare a surprise when she knows our relationship history with money overall. This is not including simple gifts and so on. Apparently those do not count. We went through a rough phase where she thought I was cheating. I was not cheating, nor in the way to do it, not even interested in anyone else. I am highly attracted to her. This phase lasted for a while, and she was going through my phone regularly, which I understand is not right, but I have nothing to hide, never had in the course of our relationship. She distorted some private stuff to outside people to the point of them assuming I was physically aggressive, related to body paints and pieces of clothing. I see her very eager to take psychotropics, not done it in the course of our relationship. I don't see the same eagerness when I said I was checking flights so we could take vacations. It felt kind of indifferent to her in my opinion. Everything about Dan feels more important than me, my opinion, or what I feel about it overall. To conclude, I can't stand her view of her ex while neglecting what I feel about multiple topics. These include: during the initial phase of our relationship, he would often come to pick up the dog, which at a certain point I verbalized that it was not normal. Response was that I was not understanding and overreacting. In one of these occurrences he had lost some weight and she was shocked and worried even while she was with me. Having pictures of him throughout our relationship. These were in albums and I requested her that if she wants to have pictures from past relations, please get it in a box and keep it where I don't see them. Initially I told her I understood she has a long-lasting previous relationship, but I could not have this chill attitude if this was a recurrent thing, as I will always try to safeguard her from everything related to my past. Fast forward 6 years and a daughter, to my surprise, pictures of him showed up, and I was to blame because I checked an album I had never seen. The album was in our living room. She says she has gone through the same stuff with her ex she has put me through related to her ex, yet I have to deal with it. Only displayed me as her partner in social media after he posted a picture with his then GF. This is a stupid one as I do not care and don't have social media myself, but it felt like some sort of, here I have a new one too. Her being friends with a girl who dates one Dan's childhood friends. I don't like it because this friend keeps on talking about Dan when they are together, like, keeps telling her stuff about Dan on how his current GF sucks and is inconvenient. Told her that she will be seeing her ex and is worried about it, and it will happen because Dan is getting married and her ex is one of the attendees. Then proceeded to talk a lot about Dan again. I have been clear about this making me uncomfortable, as the friend has no respect for our relationship by doing this. Response is that the friend is not doing it to provoke or influence anything. I was opening up about my feelings on how I feel like there have been multiple instances where I don't see an opening for me to have an impact. This led to a comment like, I had a 7-year relationship with a person that meant a lot and helped me in many ways. You have to understand it's not easy. This damaged me quite a lot. It feels like our 6 years were way worse than 1 year of the worst things in her previous relationship. The answer was, I was unhappy, but I was unhappy in different places. I did not care about the person. Honestly, I feel like shit. I don't feel valued at all, and it crushes me. I even thought of something like, if I had a side chick, if I was cheating, maybe then I would be valued or enough. How do I deal with this? Do I simply ignore it? AITA for being affected by this and verbalize it? Story 2. I, 33, F wonder. Why he ghosted me. I need to understand a situation, or else I feel I can't move on. I'm hoping the men here can help me out. So, I dated this guy 25 for 2 months, and he broke up with me on Christmas Day. We met each other on a game, and since day one we were inseparable. We had an amazing click, shared everything with each other, and kept asking each other questions, from relationships to our favorite color to future goals to sexual things. We shared it all. We both said it felt like we had known each other forever. We quickly started video calling, hanging out when we were both done working, sometimes even called throughout work. And we called while going to sleep. Basically, we hung out whenever we could. In the weekends, the call was up for 24/7. He quickly asked me to be his GF, and I thought, for once in my life, fuck it, why not, and went for it. He was open about anything and everything, shared his screens, even wanted to share his accounts for streaming sites, etc. He kept talking about wanting to fly me over so we could meet, and that was supposed to happen in March. We were talking about future plans of me moving there, having his kids, etc. I know, it's nuts to talk this early about it, but it felt really familiar and good. 3 weeks before the breakup, I noticed slight changes in his behavior. He got less intimate, called me baby, less, and got slightly more irritated. I told him many times that if he wanted to spend time alone, or with his friends, that he should just let me know that. He never did and wanted to hang out. We had 2 tiny discussions. When a friend of his joined the game one time, he introduced me as a friend, and I wondered why he wouldn't introduce me as his GF. Maybe he had issues with it being long distance, but he said the guy was a co-worker and he doesn't share his private life with work people. Oukie, I accepted that. The second argument was that I made a smart-ass comment, an attempt to humor, and it wasn't sitting well with him. Christmas Day comes, and I noticed he was acting off. He told me he was going to a friend's place to celebrate Christmas there, and I was going to hang out with my friends. When he left, I had this gut feeling, so I kept an eye on his playtime, and it went up. He also started playing different games while he was supposed to be at his friend's. I texted him kindly. He ended up calling me, and I asked him first if someone else was using his account. He said nope, and I said, listen, you don't have to lie to me. If you wish for alone time or play with your friends, you should just let me know. It's really not a big deal. He ended up saying he wasn't going to go into discussion with me. Hung up and texted me that he doesn't appreciate me thinking he's dishonest. He kept up the lie. The next day I tried to speak to him, but he refused to talk on the phone. He just wanted to text. He ended up blaming me for our fight and broke up with me. On his request, I left him alone. The next day he texted me with an apology, and he said he was sorry and that he loves me. He will work on it, but he needs space, and while he is taking space, we could still text. I agreed to give him time. I gave it 2 days before the anxiety ate me up and the panic hit me. He was barely replying to my texts. It was only 1 or 2 texts from my end, until I end up asking him for clarity and how long he needed time. No response. I sent one last text that I need to choose myself because the situation is killing me, and I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I told him I loved him and that I don't understand what happened. I ended up deleting him from gaming platforms because I couldn't stand him playing while ignoring me, and he ended up deleting me everywhere else without a response. I attempted one last reach out after a week, asking if we really can't talk about what just happened, and he is still ignoring me. I don't understand what happened. Can any man please explain to me what I did wrong? Story 3. Am I being too rigid or overly sensitive about plans changing? I'm 33F, in a relationship of nearly 1 year after a decently long dating hiatus. My previous relationship left me fairly anxious-leaning. I'm doing my best to manage but would love some perspective from my fellow over 30-year-olds. Early on in my current relationship, a conversation came up about social commitments and how we each treat spontaneous or unexpected obligations, plans, etc. BFAF was very clear about how when he makes a social commitment, he sticks to it, barring an emergency of some kind, obviously. This means no moving things around. BC, X person needs a favor, is suddenly in town, etc. This seemed a bit extreme to me as someone who has a tendency to maybe be overly considerate, borderline people-pleasing. But BF doesn't have an overly active social life, so I'm not sure how often this scenario has even come up for him. The anxious part of me admittedly even found this a tiny bit hurtful. BCI perceived it as my role as GF carrying no weight. Over time, I've come to really appreciate the consistency his perspective provides me, and feel like I can generally trust plans he and I make to pan through. There have been a few instances over the past couple of months where I've felt a bit slighted by him planning things with friends around existing plans we have. The first time it happened, he did ask me if it would be okay for him to go out for a drink with his buddies after our dinner plans. I honestly found it a little amusing because it felt like he was asking permission, lol, but I appreciated that he checked with me, since when we make evening plans, it's typically assumed we're spending the entire night/following morning together. I genuinely didn't mind. The second instance happened a couple of weeks ago. We had plans to hang out one night, and he decided to book us tickets to an event that lasted a couple of hours. At some point during the event, he mentioned he was going to meet up with his buddies for drinks later that night. It caught me off guard, and I felt a little disappointed, but let it go since one of the friends he was meeting doesn't live in town, so they don't see each other as often. A couple of days ago, he asked me to hang out X night this week, and I've now planned my week around having X night occupied. Now he's telling me that a friend reached out to him to hang out on X night and wants to know if he and I can reschedule for another night. If I can't reschedule, he's going to tell his friend he can't hang out X night and stick to our plans. This friend is local and they see each other a few times a month. I'm caught off guard by how much this is bothering me and am wondering if I'm overreacting. Yes, he did establish several months ago that when he makes a social commitment he sticks to it, but I want to grant him the space for fluidity as a person. At the same time, I'm feeling like the labor of the decision is on my shoulders entirely, and any discomfort associated with the result will be my doing. My expectation would have been that he'd tell his friend that X night is off the table because he already has plans. Am I being too rigid here? Am I centering my feelings more than I should be? Story 4. I feel like I'm doing everything right and I still can't swing it. Trying to keep this as short as possible. Key points of lore: 33F, turning 34 in a few months. Recently went through a traumatic breakup. We were together for 6 months. I am a late bloomer in dating. Only really started dating at age 29 and haven't had a real long-term relationship. He was struggling with mental health and iced me out and then blindsided me by leaving, even though we had spent the months of our relationship working through things together, so losing that person in my life in this way was deeply hard on me. Just moved into an apartment on my own for the first time in many years. I lived alone 2018-2020 and moved in with family during COVID. In November, I signed a lease for my own place, with the prospect I would be able to see my, now ex-boyfriend, more. He came here a few times while we were still together. Diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, and OCD. I've been a bigger girl my whole life, and I do think that gave me a lot of pause with dating, so it was nice to be with someone who actually appreciated and loved my body. So with that, it's been 3 weeks since the breakup, and somehow I feel worse than day one. I have done all of the things I was supposed to do. I have kept no contact. I have leaned on friends and family. I have started a new TV show. I cleaned my apartment and rearranged the furniture for a fresh start. I have filled my calendar with social plans. I signed up for a pottery class. The first one was yesterday. I have tried to focus on work where I can. I have done my best to take care of myself, though this was hard before the breakup, even better. But I'm trying my best to establish routines. In spite all of this, I feel so sad and worthless. I just feel unhappy, and I want to believe it's something that time will heal, but at the same time I'm putting in the work to go out and be social. I spend the whole time choking back tears, and then I come home and cry myself to sleep. I don't even know why I'm this sad, and I know sometimes the why is pointless to focus on, but this just feels so out of character for me. Has anyone else experienced this rut, despite putting in the work and effort to make things better for yourself? What pulled you out of it? What tips can you provide for me to try and take these positive actions and actually feel good about it? Thanks in advance. Story 5. Don't know what to do with my relationship with my girlfriend. My 30-annum girlfriend 33F and I have been together for a little over a year now, and our relationship seems like it's going backwards over the last few months. The first 8 months of our relationship was great. We would get to see each other once or twice a week, depending on schedules, because we both had a lot going on with work. Also because she has 2 young children, 2 and 3 at the time we met, we would also message all the time. It was not very often we would go more than an hour without responding to each other. We would send each other pictures almost every day, nothing inappropriate, and different reels and stuff of the sort. After a few months, she introduced me to her kids. They are great kids, and everything went really good with meeting them. The kids' dad was never really in the picture and didn't really have anything to do with them up until about 6 months ago. That's when I noticed things change a bit. Our time together went from 1-2 times a week to once a week to every other week, and the last 2 months just once a month. Our messaging followed the same pattern. The response time continued to get longer and the messages got shorter. There are days when she is really talkative, but it seems like most days now she barely engages with me and only parrots back questions I ask. Over the last 6 months she hasn't let me be around the kids either, which I never was around them much, less than 10 times total. I've also never been to where she lives the entire we've been together, which is due to her roommate having severe anxiety, at least that's what I'm told. When we are together we get along great and enjoy being with each other and have a great sex life together. She tells me she loves me and wants to spend the rest of her life with me, but with the lack of time spent together and our messages dwindling and the fact that she doesn't seem to want me around the kids makes me feel like I'm being strung along and that maybe she just likes how I treat her and the attention I give her. Or maybe I'm just a side piece for her. Now, I have tried talking to her about these things a few times, but it always seems to get brushed off by her with no real answer. I would just like to get some other people's perspective on this because I'm not sure if I'm overthinking or if I'm getting strung along. Also, how would you suggest bringing my feelings about all of this up? Every time I've tried to, she just says, "I'm sorry you're not happy," or "I'm sorry you feel that way," or she somehow turns it around on me, and I end up apologizing to her. After that, I'm more confused than I was before I brought it up. Any advice on how to communicate this to her and hopefully have a productive conversation would be greatly appreciated. Feel free to ask questions. I know this is a bit rambly. Story 6. AITA. Is someone in the wrong? Me, 35F, and my BF, 35E, have been together for over 3 years, and for the first 2 years we were besotted with each other. We have the same sense of humor and are very similar in a lot of ways. We are both on the spectrum, so we both have our own quirks. We've been living together for 2 years and are trying to move country to buy a house as we are sick of renting. Where we differ is our tidiness. I am and have always been a messy person. Sometimes it bothers me, sometimes it doesn't. With ADHD, it takes me a while to complete tasks and I really hate doing them. He is very clean and slightly OCD, washes his hands very often if touches anything, always cleaning and tidy, and gets upset when things aren't tidy, says it's like a loud noise in his head and can't relax. This is our main cause of clash. I have explained to him many times that I need to be prompted or for it to be a team job as I struggle with doing simple tasks. There is also an issue that I buy a lot of things and clothes as it makes me happy, and again I have done it all my life. He gets frustrated with me as he needs things to have a place and for there to not be much clutter, and he gets mad with me when I buy things, which makes me upset with him. I also am keen to get another pet as I love animals and is one of the things that makes me happy, but he is very against it and I find this upsetting and hard to deal with. I want to spend my life with him. He is so good to me otherwise. He buys me flowers and looked after me and still does while I struggle with depression and difficult career. He makes me laugh and is kind to me. He's treated me better than any other relationship I've had. But I do feel like I'm walking on eggshells a lot though, trying my best to tidy after myself as no, it upsets him. I have also said I'm happy to contribute towards cleaner once a week, or to be prompted more to tidy together. Have been trying to cut down on buying things but struggling with this, but I also feel I'm not living some aspects of my life the way I want. Like I'm not allowed to be me, in a way. Like I'd have a lot more pets and it would be cluttered and messy and I'd buy what I want, and it makes me not want to tell him things, whereas I usually tell him everything. I recognize he must also feel the same way, that he wants to live somewhere clean and tidy and he can't. That our flat is small and there is a lot of stuff which equates to too much noise in his head. I recognize it is not easy for him and have asked him to go to therapy multiple times, as I think it would be healthy to have someone to talk to about it that isn't me. He always agrees to, but never actions it. I'm not sure what to do. It feels like every argument is about this and they're getting more frequent, and it's making me feel so uneasy and upset. Is someone in the wrong? Or are we just always going to clash on this? I don't want to break up. Any advice on how we can exist harmoniously with each other is appreciated.